I almost died. Not physically, but psychologically, emotionally. I was invisible in my own family, except for one thing, my wallet. But here's what happened when I closed that wallet and opened my eyes. My son learned to be a man. My daughter-in-law learned respect. My granddaughter learned independence. And I learned to be myself. And this is the story of how sometimes the cruelest love is the love that says no. Welcome to the She Defied Age channel. Before we continue, please let us know in the comments section which region you are connecting from. We genuinely value this information. We wish you a deeply engaging experience with this remarkable narrative that is about to unfold. Chapter 1: The Threshold. I found myself positioned at the entrance of a residence I had acquired through decades of careful financial stewardship, clutching a warm cassava bread, as though it were a protective barrier between myself and the world. When my daughter-in-law finally opened the wooden door, she left it only partially ajar, sufficient to emit sounds of festivity and aromas, but decidedly insufficient to welcome me inside. The scent of an elaborate preparation escaped into the November dusk. Herb-braised pork and sage, precisely the centerpiece my son had mentioned treasuring since childhood. That fragrance became almost accusatory in its presence. Rachel's expression shifted into what I recognized immediately. The courtesy extended to door-to-door merchants, that practiced politeness designed specifically for dismissal. "Oh, Martha," she began, lowering her voice despite the empty suburban street. "I believe Michael neglected to inform you. This particular evening presents complications for your attendance." My comprehension fractured. The cassava bread, still radiating heat from my kitchen, suddenly seemed absurdly misjudged. My hands developed a tremor, not from the autumn chill, but from that peculiar recognition when your body understands something your mind refuses to acknowledge. The conversation that followed unfolded with the inevitability of a script I somehow already knew. Michael hadn't forgotten the invitation. He emerged from behind his wife, the man I had raised from infancy through adolescence into adulthood, the individual whose initial home purchase had been made possible by liquidating my retirement fund, wearing an expensive chronometer I had selected for his 40th year. His gaze remained resolute in its avoidance. He studied the flooring. He examined the wall. He focused on a point situated directly above my left ear. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a weight that triggered physical nausea. "Mom, I should clarify something. Tonight's gathering has expanded. Several colleagues from the firm and their associates are joining us. The environment might not suit you particularly well." Unsuitable. The word seemed to materialize as a tangible object suspended between us, contaminating the air with its implications. Did he truly believe I would be uncomfortable in a space I owned, in a structure my financial contributions had essentially constructed? I examined the cassava bread in my possession, wrapped in silver foil still emanating warmth, and recognized it suddenly as an anachronism, a peasant's gift presented at an aristocratic venue. I had understood myself to be incorporated into this family, I stated, my voice emerging smaller than intended. Rachel smoothed her imported silk garment, the same expensive fabric that exceeded my bi-weekly supermarket expenditures. "We simply determine it optimal if you absent yourself from this particular evening, Martha," she responded. Then came the articulation that would restructure my entire existence. "Image maintenance remains paramount. Honestly, Martha, you should embrace less comfortable circumstances, so our future trajectory can receive appropriate focus. We require this evening exclusively for ourselves." The audacity paralyzed me momentarily. Live with diminished comfort? At that precise moment, positioned on a porch I had financed, dressed in a coat purchased a decade prior, while they prepared to entertain within a residence built substantially through my resources, they possessed a distorted understanding. They weren't requesting my descent into austerity. They sought amplified luxury at my expense, while simultaneously erasing my presence from their elevated existence. I stood there, comprehending that I had been neither mother nor grandmother. I had functioned as a financial instrument, and instruments don't receive dinner invitations. I responded with a mechanical nod. "Certainly. I trust you'll have an adequate evening." I rotated and proceeded along the pathway toward my automobile. feeling each footstep as an indignity that my body registered with aching joints. The exterior light extinguished before I traversed halfway, submerging me into darkness while still clutching the unwanted cassava bread. That journey homeward became a watershed. Tears emerged, intense and distorting street illumination into elongated luminescent streaks. I contemplated the fundamental betrayal. The individuals I loved most didn't reciprocate that affection with genuine feeling. They appreciated my utility. They valued the stability I provided. But authentic love? That remained absent. The realization cracked something essential within me, creating fractures that would never fully seal. Yet upon entering my property, observing my modest residence, noting the peeling exterior paint and the rattling furnace, my anguish underwent transformation. Sadness crystallized into something substantially colder, markedly more rigid. I positioned the now hardened cassava bread upon my kitchen counter and remained motionless in the darkness, listening to my refrigerator's mechanical hum. That single word reverberated through my consciousness. Uncomfortable. They worried I would generate discomfort. Perhaps, I reflected with emerging resolve, the moment had arrived for them to comprehend what genuine discomfort actually represented. Chapter 2. The Accounting. Morning brought extraordinary clarity, a lucidity I hadn't experienced in preceding years. Previously, my consciousness fragmented across concerns. Had Michael managed insurance obligations? Had Rachel scheduled necessary appointments? Did the children require educational funding? This morning, those preoccupations evaporated entirely, replaced by resolute determination. I accessed the storage location containing my accumulated documentation. The drawer stuck slightly as I pulled, groaning with the burden of truths I had systematically ignored. Inside resided a folder bearing the notation family expenditures. Inadequate nomenclature. Really. It should have indicated Michael and Rachel's financial foundation. I arranged myself with chamomile tea and commenced the calculation. The enumeration needed to occur. I required witnessing the financial consequences of their disrespect in concrete numerical form. The initial papers documented mortgage transactions, automatic debits from my designated accounts. Subsequent pages outlined 2 vehicle acquisition payments. The luxury recreational vehicle Rachel championed as essential for child transportation safety, and the performance automobile Michael maintained was necessary for professional presentations. Then the supplementary outlays commenced, accumulating like moisture through a compromised roof structure, gradually compromising my financial foundation. Health insurance contracts, landscaping maintenance agreements, membership within a country club that Michael insisted facilitated business relationships, educational tuition at preparatory institutions, fresh produce delivery subscriptions, digital entertainment packages. My finger traversed the itemized accounting as my cardiovascular rhythm intensified. The total eventually revealed itself. 126 recurring financial obligations originating from my financial infrastructure into theirs. 126 methodologies through which I maintained their elevated existence. 126 explanations for my exclusion from their social gathering. The aggregate figure proved stunning. The amount surpassed the complete annual expenditure that sustained my marriage during our earliest years. Rachel's instruction echoed repeatedly. Embrace reduced comfort. I surveyed my surroundings. Laminate countertops exhibiting wear. A cooking apparatus manufactured 2 decades prior. My own socks required hand repair. I purchased economical beverages exclusively. Years of diminished comfort had been my reality, subsidizing their luxurious circumstances. A cascade of revulsion preceded fury. The financial magnitude wasn't actually the fundamental issue. Maternal figures characteristically provide available resources. The contempt represented the true transgression. They accepted currency through one mechanism while simultaneously rejecting my personhood through another. This existence they inhabited, they interpreted it as inherent achievement. They had forgotten entirely the foundational structure upon which they positioned themselves. I repositioned the documentation folder. That minor sound, paper contacting paper, resonated throughout my kitchen with the finality of a judicial gavel. My course became evident. Once initiated, reversal would prove impossible. My telephone transmitted an incoming signal that afternoon. Michael's identification appeared. For a solitary, naive moment, I harbored expectation that perhaps remorse had prompted his communication, that maybe recognition of their cruelty had manifested. I engaged the connection. "Mom," he commenced, his speech accelerated. No preliminary courtesies. Merely transactional demand. I failed to mention that the grounds maintenance contractors arrive tomorrow, but I suspect the payment method on file has experienced expiration. Verification would assist if possible. Previous late assessment fees accumulated. My digital grip tightened until finger extremities bleached. No expression of regret. No acknowledgement of yesterday's event. Merely expectation. Anticipating I would function simultaneously as his administrative coordinator and financial sponsor. "I'll investigate the matter," I responded, maintaining vocal equilibrium despite the internal turbulence. "Outstanding. Time constraints exist. Conference in 5. He terminated the connection. I remained, attending to the disconnection's transmission. I would investigate. Absolutely, I would investigate everything. I rose and collected my personal accessory. The financial institution commenced operations in less than half an hour. Chapter 3. The Severance. Entering the banking establishment felt transformed that particular day. Throughout 4 decades, I had maintained patronage at this identical branch. The transaction coordinators possessed familiarity with me. I maintained established rapport with the chief administrator, Catherine. Typically, I entered demonstrating the bearing of a fatigued elderly individual managing diminishing financial reserves. This occasion presented differently. I projected intentionality. "Martha," Catherine expressed through cordial greeting, gesturing me into her workspace. "Pleasure to observe you. The grandchildren maintain wellness?" "Adequate condition, Catherine," I answered, positioning myself across from her desk. "I'm initiating substantial modifications. Consequential ones." Catherine's welcoming expression underwent subtle deterioration upon observing my facial configuration. She positioned the room's barrier mechanism. "Are circumstances satisfactory?" "Circumstances will transition appropriately," I responded. "I require termination of all automatic distributions directed toward Michael and Rachel's financial accounts. Absolutely all of them. Housing payments, utility provisions, credit facilities, insurance contracts, comprehensive cessation. Immediate implementation." Catherine's visual systems expanded. Her professional veneer experienced momentary displacement. "Martha, that represents considerable financial activity. Your files indicate over 126 persistent payment arrangements linked to those accounts. Are you genuinely certain? This action will generate immediate service interruptions for them." I extracted my compilation document. Comprehensive itemization. All requirements highlighted for termination. Today. Absolute immediacy. Catherine examined my documentation, her gaze progressively widening as she processed the volume. She redirected her attention toward me, and comprehension manifested through her expression, that distinctive recognition women of our generational cohort possessed regarding circumstances when a female individual had provided until complete internal depletion had been achieved. She refrained from interrogating specifics. She didn't attempt persuasion. She simply provided acknowledgement. "What additional requirements exist?" she inquired softly. "Singular supplementary matter," I articulated. "I'm rescinding Michael's authority documentation, and I'm eliminating him from my mortality insurance beneficiary designations." The conference space transitioned into profound silence. This represented the ultimate option, the complete severing of connections and mechanisms that couldn't be subsequently re-established. "We'll accomplish this," Catherine communicated quietly. "Documentation will be necessary." "I'm equipped with temporal availability," I stated. "Significant temporal availability." With every signature I produced, my appendages remained perfectly steady. With each authorized transaction, a physical sensation of descending burden permeated my consciousness. comparable to finally releasing a substantial load I had transported up an incline. Why had I maintained this transportation for such extended duration? Because I had interpreted it as emotional connection, or because I harbored apprehension that discontinuation would trigger their complete separation. They had ultimately separated anyway. They had withdrawn their welcome. Therefore, what exchange was I financing? Upon departing the financial establishment, temporal advancement had reached midday. Atmospheric conditions provided sunshine, and the seasonal fragrance of decay and renewal pervaded the air. I made an unconventional decision. I navigated toward the artisanal bakery positioned on the primary commercial thoroughfare, and procured a fresh pastry and an elevated quality espresso, the variety with decorative foam that Rachel perpetually dismissed as financially wasteful. I positioned myself proximate to the transparent barrier, and consumed my acquisition while observing pedestrian activity. An unfamiliar euphoria enveloped me. I questioned the timeline. The response manifested rapidly. That evening, as I established myself with reading material, my communication device activated with message transmission. Rachel's designation appeared. Martha. The entertainment subscription service exhibits malfunction. System indicates payment rejection. Did you transition to alternative financial account methodology? I reviewed her message, consumed supplementary tea. I didn't generate response. 20 moments subsequently, another message arrived. Michael's attribution. Mom, did you overlook utility payment? Financial institution notification indicates delinquency. Address this with urgency, please. Not inquiry regarding my wellness. Not acknowledgement that something might be wrong. Merely demand for remediation. I reoriented my device and positioned it face downward upon my furniture. Let them contemplate. Let them experience nocturnal darkness for a single evening. The subsequent morning, the eruption commenced. I occupied my garden, performing necessary maintenance upon flowering botanical specimens, activities I had neglected throughout months of performing their errands. My communication apparatus vibrated within my garment storage with increasing frequency. The sensation resembled a captive insect attempting escape through fabric. 7 unsuccessful connection attempts from Michael. 3 from Rachel. Textual communications escalating from bewilderment through mounting urgency to unrestrained hostility. The housing payment transaction failed. Financial systems indicated account restriction. What transpired? I continued botanical pruning, removing deceased botanical material. My maternal figure regularly articulated a concept. Aesthetic development necessitates removal. You must eliminate non-productive components so the organism can advance. Understanding materialized presently in unprecedented fashion. I composed lunch preparations internally. During consumption, an automobile decelerated with considerable force through my residence's entry pathway. I possessed no requirement for external verification. The deliberate footsteps against my exterior entrance communicated everything. The access portal received forceful contact rather than respectful knocking. Michael presented himself, facial coloration intensified, head covering disheveled. He manifested as an individual whose existence had experienced sudden gravitational disruption. Mom, he articulated with elevated vocal intensity. What occurred? Banking representatives indicated you discontinued everything. Housing expenses, automobile contracts, all financial arrangements. I maintained deliberate mastication and swallowing. I gestured toward available seating. Greetings, Michael. Might you require sustenance? I don't require consumables, he responded, beginning ambulatory movement throughout my modest kitchen. I require clarification regarding why my financial transaction was declined at the petroleum distribution location. I require knowledge of banking communications concerning housing payments. Do you comprehend the reputational consequences? Reputational consequences? I inquired, sustaining vocal steadiness. Comparable to the discomfort experienced upon a residential threshold, holding unwanted refreshment, while being instructed your presence was unacceptable? He terminated movement, his visual attention concentrating upon me. Are you suggesting this represents retribution for the previous evening? Your emotional response to the social gathering? I harbor no emotional response, Michael, I articulated, rising. I am simply experiencing reduced comfort. Alternatively, I'm permitting you to develop comfort independent of my resources. This represents insanity, he articulated, his tempo accelerating. You cannot arbitrarily restrict our existence. We maintain financial responsibilities. The children's educational institution expenses present themselves in subsequent moments. I propose you access your own financial documentation, I countered with absolute steadiness. Individuals functioning as independent financial entities typically possess resources for such obligations. I lack those specific quantities, he articulated with raised vocal intensity. You acknowledge I maintain resources generated through labor, yet I haven't required worry regarding such matters. Precisely the problem, I articulated, establishing upright position and advancing toward him. You lack independent worry capacity, Michael, because I've eliminated that necessity. You're functioning at precisely 42 years of temporal age. You generate considerable income through professional engagement. Yet I finance your belongings, your residential existence, your family vehicle maintenance. You're not reliant upon assistance, Michael. You're fundamentally dependent upon my financial mechanism. That condition ends today. He articulated nothing. Comprehension materialized through his physiognomy. You're dismantling our existence, he articulated quietly, the hostility dissolving into apprehension. No. Y responda. I'm initiating your existence. Your father, may he continue peacefully, would have desired your independent functionality. He would have envisioned you as a self-sufficient male. Witnessing you currently, a male who withdraws his maternal figure from his entrance because her presence lacks adequate social elevation, while operating a vehicle that individual provides payment for, he would have experienced shame. The utterance registered. Shame, Michael articulated quietly, his physical form demonstrating destabilization as though the word possessed tangible force. You're destroying us, he articulated in diminished volume, panic replacing anger. Just rectify this situation, Mom. Please. I am rectifying it, I responded. Immediately request my residence evacuation. My botanical maintenance requires completion. He departed as though animated by external mechanism rather than autonomous consciousness. His motion suggested disorientation. His verbal communication became non-existent. I secured the entrance afterward, then positioned myself against the wooden structure, maintaining visual apertures in sealed position. My cardiac rhythm accelerated, yet I detected no weakness. I experienced something fundamentally different. Capability. The battle's initial phase had concluded. The comprehensive conflict remained. Chapter 4. The Confrontation. Rachel's methodology differed substantially. She avoided direct residence contact, excessively transparent for her particular psychological structure. Instead, she transmitted a communication signal that evening. Her vocal tone carried glacial temperature. Martha, she commenced formally, I'm presuming this represents some variety of cognitive deterioration episode. I've already contacted legal representation regarding capacity assessments. Laughter emerged from me, genuine, unfettered amusement that originated from my thoracic cavity. Oh, Rachel, I responded. Your comprehension of my nature remains fundamentally deficient, does it? You might believe that because I prepare baked goods and engage in textile creation that my nature contains softness. I administered accounting functions for my spouse's commercial establishment across 30 years. I maintain complete comprehension of my actions. If you attempt juridical proceedings, I will produce comprehensive financial documentation. Do you desire a magistrate examining your expense documentation? The Brazilian cosmetic procedures? Your wellness consultant compensation? Her respiratory function experienced dramatic interruption. Continued reference to previous discourse, I added. You perceived my generosity as evidence of weakness. You conceptualized me as utilized furniture, serviceable, but appropriately positioned in concealment when external associates visit. However, Furniture possesses proprietorship of the structure. You're implementing cruelty, she articulated with hissing intonation. What of the juvenile family members? Will you permit them experiencing deprivation because of your egotistical demonstration? Juvenile individuals remain welcome within my residential space whenever desired, I responded. I will produce baked items. I will engage them through narrative communication. I will not, however, finance their expensive academic institution tuition. If financial capacity doesn't exist, perhaps vehicle diversification or leisure property liquidation represents viable methodology. My financial mechanism has concluded operation. I will never provide forgiveness for this action, she communicated through compressed teeth. That status remains acceptable, I concluded. Forgiveness wasn't requested. Respectful treatment was requested. Until such treatment transpires, the financial establishment remains sealed. I terminated the communication with finger contact. The resulting silence represented the most fulfilling auditory experience I had encountered. Chapter 5: The Silence. Subsequent temporal progression maintained quietness. Intensely, agonizingly quiet. Communication ceased. Messages disappeared. Visits stopped occurring. I inhabited solitude. Within that silence, doubt commenced penetration. Had I proceeded excessively far? Did my actions characterize poor maternal performance? Bad grandmother functionality? I positioned myself within my upholstered seating proximate to my transparent barrier, observing precipitation falling, experiencing the ache of separation. Severing connections with family remains agonizing, comparable to amputating a limb, regardless of underlying pathology. Physical discomfort persists regardless. Yet the fourth diurnal cycle produced a different sound, not thunderous pounding from an enraged masculine figure, but gentle rhythmic percussion. I accessed my entrance to locate Emily, my granddaughter possessing 19 years, maintaining a transparent storage container with apprehensive facial expression. "Greeting, grandmother," she articulated. "May I enter?" "Absolutely, precious individual," I responded, providing clearance. She positioned the container upon my furniture. "I prepared lasagna," she communicated. "Quality probably remains suboptimal compared to your preparations, but I desired offering something." Hydration accumulated within my visual apparatus. "Profound gratitude, Emily," I articulated. She positioned herself and examined her appendages. "Conditions remain chaotic within residence," she articulated quietly. "Parental figures engage in frequent disagreement concerning finances, concerning you." I accessed the documentation. Paternal figure abandoned it upon the kitchen surface. My respiration halted. "You reviewed it?" "Yes. Numeric value existed. 126. I previously held no comprehension that you financed my automotive insurance expenditure. I maintain no understanding that you provided financial foundation for everything." She extended her appendage across my furniture and made contact with my hand. Her dermal covering possessed the characteristic of youthful individuals. "I experience remorse," she articulated. "I experience remorse we consumed excessively. I experience remorse we neglected expressing appreciation." Water descended from my visual apparatus. This represented what I had been fundamentally starving for. Not financial substance, not control mechanisms, merely acknowledgement. "Profound gratitude, Emily," I articulated quietly. "That communication carries more significance than you comprehend." "Maternal figure maintains that residential property requires liquidation," she communicated. "Paternal figure attempts to obtain financial credit, yet his credit assessment quality suffers because previous worry never existed for him. They will determine resolution," I stated with emphasis. "They maintain adult capacity. They merely disremembered that fact." "I comprehend," she responded. "Grandmother, I obtained employment within the educational institution's commercial structure. I can finance my individual vehicle fuel and insurance. I maintain no desire to replicate their existence." I made hand contact with her appendages, My cardiac sensations expanding with gratification. That constitutes wonderful information, Emily. I maintain profound appreciation for your person. I love you, grandmother, and I support your determination, she articulated with intensity within her vocal expression. Emily maintained presence for consumable sharing. We consumed the lasagna, actually impressive in quality, and engaged in discussion. We didn't reference financial matters or Michael or Rachel. We discussed her scholarly pursuits, literary materials, forthcoming existence. Throughout years preceding, I hadn't maintained conversation with family members who genuinely perceived my personhood. Upon her departure, she provided thorough physical contact. I love you, grandmother, and I'm proud of your determination, she articulated. I observed her departure, experiencing internal warmth distribution. I had experienced loss of my male offspring and his spouse, perhaps temporarily, perhaps perpetually. Yet I had acquired my granddaughter and most significantly, had acquired myself. Chapter 6. The Transformation. 14 solar cycles proceeded. I maintained peripheral awareness through community discussion mechanisms. My associate Jennifer, who engaged in recreational card activities with Rachel's maternal figure, that circumstances within their residence had transformed into turmoil. Michael had liquidated the performance vehicle. Rachel had withdrawn from the botanical maintenance service and the country club facility. Substantial fiscal reorganization was occurring. Certainly, they maintained hostile emotional positions, but they persisted in functioning. One twilight interval found me positioned upon my exterior seating structure, proprietor of this residence and this existence, consuming warmth-generating herbal beverage. Solar illumination was transitioning, creating atmospheric pigmentation of purple and golden hues. An automotive vehicle presented itself through my residential access pathway. The sedan Michael had obtained as replacement for the performance automobile. He exited with deliberate motion. He manifested as exhausted. He manifested as progressed in aging. His advancement along the pathway demonstrated no acceleration. His appendages remained within fabric storage chambers. Upon positioning himself at the base of my exterior step structure, he maintained upward visual orientation. "Greeting, Mom," he articulated quietly. "Greeting, Michael," I responded. I didn't facilitate his ascent. Not yet. "I have delivered the temporal measurement device," he articulated, extracting a container from his pocket. I shouldn't have maintained it. I liquidated the supplementary items, yet you provided this to me. Liquidation felt incorrect. He advanced the step structure and positioned the container upon my boundary structure. "I don't require the temporal measurement device, Michael," I articulated with gentleness. "It constituted a gift. It remains your possession." He examined the container, then my facial structure. His visual systems demonstrated vascular prominence and moisture. "I don't possess merit for it. I don't possess merit for anything you provided." "Accurate," I concurred. "Previously you didn't. Yet you can acquire it." He generated vocal acknowledgement, performing swallowing motion. "This constitutes difficulty, Mom. Actual difficulty. We're experiencing struggle."
I acknowledge, I articulated.
"I maintain faith within you. You maintain intellectual capacity, Michael. You maintain functional capability. Resolution will materialize." He maintained visual concentration upon me with unfamiliar expression. Reverence? Apprehension? Possibly proportions of both. "You genuinely will not provide supplementary financial assistance, will you?" he articulated. "Negative," I responded. "I possess love for you in magnitude that prevents prolonging this destruction." He created respiratory vocalization, drawn with tremor. "Acceptable. Acceptable." He rotated to depart, then halted. Might I attend social meal consumption moments? Exclusively me and the juvenile individuals? No commercial associates? Merely consumption? I generated facial expression of authenticity and warmth. "I would appreciate that extensively, Michael." Temporal context. Subsequent Tuesday? I will prepare herb-braised poultry. I would love participation, he articulated, his vocal structure fracturing. Appreciation, Mom. I maintained visual focus upon his departure progression. His movement demonstrated greater weight, yes, individual life's burden distribution, yet his advancement appeared steadier. He was transitioning into masculine functionality. At last, subsequent to 42 temporal rotations, transformation was manifesting. I repositioned within my seating structure and consumed herbal beverage. Environmental temperatures were descending, yet I maintained thermal sensation. My sensation remained complete. I directed myself internally and accessed my drawer. The compilation labeled Household Financial Accounting remained present. I extracted it and navigated toward my waste receptacle. No ceremonial combustion ritual was necessary. No decorative observance required. I deposited it. It was eliminated material. It constituted concluded history. I progressed through my residence into my leisure activity area and obtained my fiber creation apparatus. Textile manufacturing remained incomplete. A garment for Emily. Additionally, I contemplated textile creation for my individual self. Refined cashmere composition, expensive material, comfortable substance, because I maintained deservingness of comfortable existence. I positioned myself in this location. This space I maintained proprietorship of. This existence I maintained proprietorship of. Comprehension materialized with profound intensity. We expend substantial existence attempting maintenance of others' thermal comfort until we experience existential freezing. Currently, that pattern had terminated. My residence's thermal source burned with intensity. I positioned myself proximate to greatest radiation. For inaugural moments through extended duration, I occupied the position of greatest warmth allocation. Chapter 7. The Reclamation. Transformation occurred gradually, then unexpectedly swiftly. The initial dinners with Michael and the juvenile individuals became routine patterns. Rachel maintained resistant positioning through several temporal cycles, yet gradual atmospheric modification eventually transpired. Emily's continued employment and financial autonomy, Michael's demonstrated capacity for independent problem resolution, and my resolute maintenance of limitations gradually restructured their comprehension. 6 months post-severance, Rachel participated in preliminary evening meal. She didn't articulate immediate reconciliation. Instead, she sat in my kitchen with facial expressions suggesting internal processing. Our discourse remained minimally substantive initially, yet through multiple subsequent interactions something shifted. Perhaps she recognized that my determination originated not from cruelty, but from love's most demanding manifestation. Perhaps she comprehended that my boundaries represented the greatest gift I could provide. Michael, over subsequent temporal intervals, demonstrated progressive transformation. He liquidated extraneous expenditures. He investigated occupational advancement opportunities. He became engaged, authentically engaged, with his familial unit's fiscal circumstances. His juvenile family members observed their paternal figure functioning as autonomous masculine figure. The observation proved educational for them. They developed comprehension that capability generates self-esteem in magnitude that monetary provision never could replicate. My granddaughter Emily developed into capable young female. She maintained her employment while pursuing scholarly objectives. She never requested financial assistance. When she required resources, she determined solutions through her cognitive efforts. I maintained profound admiration for her determination. My residence underwent gradual refinement. I completed botanical maintenance that years of neglect had postponed. I acquired fresh furniture components. I engaged in leisure activities I had abandoned through decades of providing for others' requirements. I traveled, something I hadn't done since my spouse's existence concluded. I experienced sensations of living rather than existing. The lemon bread item eventually required utilization. Months had passed since that evening of rejection. I selected a serene afternoon, prepared nourishment for myself, and consumed the bread. Its flavor had changed through extended temporal storage, became more concentrated, more intense. Tasted like perseverance. It tasted like dignity recovered. It tasted like personal reclamation through refusal to maintain destruction. Chapter 8. The Revelation. Temporal advancement produces clarification. What appeared during crisis moments as catastrophic eventually transforms into perspective when adequate duration passes. My extraction of financial support seemed, during immediate aftermath, as though I had fractured my familial unit irreparably. Yet the consequence manifested differently. My spouse, during our shared decades, consistently articulated conviction that genuine affection demonstrates itself through challenge rather than capitulation. He maintained that parental figures ultimately serve offspring best not through unlimited provision, but through systematic instruction in autonomous functioning. I had neglected those principles. I had interpreted maternal functionality as unlimited sacrifice. My correction process wasn't punishment. That characterization would prove inaccurate. Punishment suggests temporary consequence. My methodology constituted fundamental restructuring of established patterns. It functions similarly to prescribed medical intervention. Occasionally necessary agony produces restored wellness. Michael eventually acknowledged, during a subsequent meal consumption moment when we sat together without juvenile individuals, that the severance period, despite its difficulty, produced consequence beneficial for his psychological development. He had existed throughout his adult experience without genuine confrontation of consequence. His financial obligations had been externally managed. His life complications had been externally resolved. He had become comfortable in manner that obscured his actual capability. "I'm ashamed," he articulated quietly, "of the individual I became. I'm grateful you possessed the determination to refuse enabling that version of me further." Rachel subsequently articulated comparable sentiment, though her acknowledgement emerged through different verbal pathway. "I didn't comprehend how my treatment of you had transitioned into contempt. I didn't realize I'd become someone who could dismiss the individual who made everything possible. Your refusal to tolerate that behavior forced me to examine myself." These communications, though arriving delayed, possessed transformative significance greater than any monetary transaction could generate. They represented something intrinsically valuable: authentic recognition of my personhood separate from my utility. Emily, as her young female development continued, articulated vision for her future incorporating nothing of her parental figure's previous excess-focused trajectory. She possessed comprehension, obtained through witness consequence, that sustainable existence necessitates equilibrium between desire and capacity. She possessed recognition that authentic independence generates satisfaction that purchased privilege never could produce. Chapter 9. The Wisdom. Temporal progression generates understanding. I currently recognize several essential principles that my earlier existence had obscured through concentrated focus upon others' requirements. First principle: generosity unrequited through gratitude gradually transforms into resentment. I hadn't initiated my financial provision expecting recognition. Yet the accumulated unacknowledged sacrifice had calcified into bitterness that poisoned my affection fundamentally. Had Michael and Rachel provided periodic explicit appreciation, the dynamic might have transformed differently. Recognition of sacrifice sustains generosity. Dismissed sacrifice eventually produces revulsion. Second principle: autonomy cannot be granted. It must be earned through confrontation with consequence. I had intended providing security through financial support. Instead, I had generated dependence that prevented authentic adult development. By eliminating artificial protection, I compelled genuine maturation. Michael couldn't remain adolescent when confronted with authentic fiscal obligation. Third principle: maternal affection sometimes necessitates refusal. Society frequently characterizes optimal maternal existence as unlimited provision and unconditional acceptance. Yet that characterization proves incomplete. Sometimes the most profound maternal gift involves establishing boundaries, enforcing consequences, and refusing to sustain destructive patterns. I had internalized cultural messaging that my value derived from my sacrifice. Rejecting that framework required distinguishing between genuine love and enabling dysfunction. Fourth principle: personal dignity cannot be negotiated or abandoned without consequence. When I permitted Michael and Rachel to dismiss me while accepting their financial dependence, I implicitly authorized my own devaluation. I became complicit in my own diminishment. Asserting my worth, through the difficult methodology of refusing financial provision, restored my personhood. Fifth principle. Forgiveness operates most powerfully when combined with boundary maintenance. I didn't remain hostile toward Michael and Rachel through perpetuity. I genuinely forgave them. Yet forgiveness didn't necessitate returning to previous financial arrangements. I maintained firm boundaries while extending emotional reconnection. This combination proved far more transformative than either forgiveness without boundaries or permanent separation would have been. Chapter 10: The Legacy. Years subsequent to the porch rejection, I observe the consequences of my determination. Michael functions as competent masculine figure, who manages his familial unit's fiscal circumstances without external assistance. His juvenile individuals develop comprehension that privilege requires effort, that comfort requires responsibility. Rachel, subsequent to her initial resistance, actually expressed gratitude for the limitations I had imposed. She acknowledged that those limitations had prompted personal examination and development she wouldn't otherwise have pursued. Emily represents perhaps the most visible testament to the power of demonstrated consequence. She functions with authentic independence unusual for her generational cohort. She doesn't experience entitlement. She comprehends direct relationship between individual effort and individual reward. She possesses capacity for delayed gratification. She recognizes that sustainable life construction necessitates building upon individual capacity, rather than external provision. More significantly, I observe my grandchildren developing comparable comprehension. When they visit, they witness their paternal figure functioning responsibly. They observe their maternal figure demonstrating authentic respect rather than practice civility. They recognize that family structures built upon mutual regard prove substantially more satisfying than those constructed through financial hierarchy. I have become the grandmother who doesn't substitute financial resources for temporal presence. I allocate my limited monetary resources toward experiences rather than acquisitions. I teach my grandchildren through narrative and practice rather than protective provision. I demonstrate that dignified existence doesn't require excessive possession. I model that satisfaction originates from internal accomplishment rather than external provision. Chapter 11: The Peace. The porch where I was rejected now represents something entirely different. I recently stood there during afternoon interval, viewing the botanical structures I had cultivated, feeling the solar radiation against my facial structure, and I experienced the peculiar peace that arrives when one has genuinely reclaimed personal existence. That peace doesn't derive from victory over my family. It originates from victory over the narrative that my personal value depended upon others' recognition. I constructed my existence around another framework entirely. My personal value exists inherently, completely independent of others' utilization of me. Whether Michael acknowledges it or not, whether Rachel respects it or not, whether my grandchildren appreciate it or not, I possess worth simply through my existence. This comprehension eliminates profound psychological weight. I no longer await others' recognition to validate my contribution. I no longer measure my success through their comfort level. I no longer interpret their requests as obligations. I have become functionally autonomous not merely financially but psychologically. Additionally, the absence of my previous financial arrangements has generated surprising consequence. Expanded personal resources for my individual requirements. The monetary quantity previously allocated toward their maintenance now permits me to address deferred personal maintenance. My residence receives necessary repairs. My wardrobe expands. I travel to locations I've wanted to experience. I engage in leisure activities I'd abandoned years prior. I discover that living comfortably myself generates satisfaction competing with what I had presumed was fulfillment through provision for others. Furthermore, my relationships with my family members have somehow deepened through the severance and subsequent reconnection. We interact now from positions of mutual respect rather than hierarchical obligation. Meals we share together carry genuine enjoyment, instead of begrudging acceptance. Conversations develop authentic substance rather than superficial courtesy. Michael asks my perspective on complicated circumstances and actually listens to responses. Rachel periodically seeks my counsel regarding interpersonal complications. Emily actively pursues my company, not from obligation but from genuine desire. This quality of connection, authentic, respectful, mutual, surpasses what I possessed when I functioned as their financial support structure. Distance created by the severance somehow generated closer psychological and emotional proximity. Chapter 12. The Continuation. My life currently contains dimensions I had neglected or abandoned through decades of maternal provision focus. I engage in textile creation activities that produce not furnishings for others, but beautiful items for my own residence. I attend theatrical performances and artistic exhibitions without considering whether my expenditure might have benefited others more significantly. I maintain friendships that had atrophied through insufficient temporal allocation. I read extensively through extended afternoon intervals without experiencing guilt regarding alternative activities. I experience periodic moments of what I characterize as reverse anxiety. I anticipate that my family members will again request financial contribution, and I experience apprehension regarding my capacity to maintain refusal. Yet those instances occur with decreasing frequency. Michael demonstrates no indication of returning to previous dependency patterns. Rachel actually commented recently that she and Michael had accomplished modifications to their residence, improvements requiring minimal resources but maximum personal effort, and she expressed genuine pride in their collaborative accomplishment. She articulated recognition that this pride derived from personal effort rather than external provision. Additionally, I discovered that my financial resources, previously consumed through their provision, permitted me increased security through my individual future planning. I engaged financial consultation services to ensure my remaining decades possess adequate resource foundation. I established arrangements ensuring that my residence and personal effects will transition smoothly upon my eventual conclusion. I secured that Michael and Rachel cannot easily obtain control of my assets through manipulation or legal mechanisms, should they attempt such acquisition. This security itself generates profound peace. I no longer harbor apprehension regarding becoming financial burden upon my family in my advancing years. I will maintain resources for my own care. If my family members contribute toward my support in future temporal intervals, that contribution will represent genuine affection rather than obligation-based requirement. Chapter 13. The Understanding. What I comprehend most profoundly now involves the distinction between authentic love and enabling behavior. Society frequently conflates these phenomena. We receive constant messaging that genuine maternal affection necessitates unlimited provision. Yet authentic love occasionally requires refusal. It sometimes demands that beloved individuals experience consequence resulting from their autonomous choices. I possessed authentic affection for Michael and Rachel. That affection motivated my financial provision. Yet my provision, through lacking boundary maintenance, gradually transformed into enabling destruction. I wasn't protecting them through my actions. I was preventing their development into fully functional autonomous adults. Perhaps the most challenging realization involves acknowledging my own complicity in the pattern. I maintained the financial provision partially because I required experiencing valued and essential. I had constructed my identity substantially around the role of provider. Discontinuing the provision required abandoning not merely financial practice, but fundamental self-conceptualization. I had to acknowledge that my worth existed independent of what I provided. This acknowledgement proved difficult. It necessitated confronting various uncomfortable truths regarding my psychological motivations. Yet this confrontation, though uncomfortable, liberated me from patterns that had constrained my existence. Chapter 14. The Closure. The cassava bread that I held that evening of rejection, I eventually consumed that identical item. It had become hardened through extended temporal storage. Yet the flavor, while transformed, carried profound significance. It represented the conclusion of a temporal era, the era when I positioned my needs secondary to others' preferences. I didn't require ceremony or symbolic gesture regarding closure. The simple action of consuming that bread without anyone requesting it, without anyone rejecting it, without anyone expressing contempt regarding my offering, sufficed. I consumed it because I wanted to consume it. I found it satisfying. That simplicity represented the actual transformation. My current existence contains elements that my previous existence didn't. Genuine autonomy, authentic respect from family members, personal satisfaction independent of others' recognition, financial security, psychological peace. Additionally, my relationship with my family members has transformed into something substantially more authentic and meaningful than the hierarchical obligation structure that previously existed. Chapter 15: The Invitation. Michael contacted me recently. His communication didn't involve financial request or schedule accommodation demand. Instead, he invited me to participate in his family's vacation experience. He wanted my presence, not to manage logistics, not to provide financial support, but genuinely to share the experience. I accepted. I contributed financially to elements of the vacation that I chose to contribute toward. Michael and Rachel managed primary arrangements through their own resources and effort. My presence during the vacation represented companionship rather than support function. During one evening interval when the juveniles were resting, Michael articulated something that carried profound significance. "Mom, I've been considering how different my life trajectory would have proven if you had continued providing without limitation. I likely would have never developed actual capability. I would have become progressively more dependent, not less. Your refusal was difficult, but it was necessary. It was actually the thing that preserved my future." Rachel added, "I realized that I was becoming someone I didn't respect. I was becoming contemptuous toward you while simultaneously depending upon you. That was destroying me psychologically. Your boundaries forced me to confront that dysfunction. I'm grateful for that confrontation, though I certainly wasn't grateful at the time." These articulations, emerging from their comprehension rather than my requirement, represented true transformation. They weren't provided to manipulate or to guilt assuage me. They represented genuine recognition and gratitude. Chapter 16: The Final Reflection. Standing currently upon my porch, the same porch where rejection occurred, I observe my botanical structures flourishing through my personally invested effort. I observe my residents displaying evidence of my autonomous choices regarding maintenance and development. I experience my existence as genuinely my own. What I've comprehended through this experience involves fundamental truth. Genuine love for family members sometimes requires refusing their requests. Authentic maternal affection sometimes necessitates establishing firm boundaries. The most significant gift a parent can provide isn't unlimited provision. It's the permission and requirement for autonomous development. Additionally, I've comprehended that personal dignity represents a non-negotiable element of healthy existence. When we permit others to dismiss us while accepting their dependency, we destroy ourselves gradually. When we reclaim our worth and insist upon respectful treatment, we create possibility for authentic connection to develop. To others experiencing similar circumstances, those functioning as financial support systems for family members who demonstrate insufficient gratitude or respect, I offer this comprehension. You possess the right to establish boundaries. You possess the right to refuse provision. You possess the right to reclaim your existence and redirect your resources toward your individual requirements and satisfaction. Exercising those rights isn't abandonment. It's self-preservation and invitation for others to develop genuine autonomy. The temporal cost of such boundary establishment proves substantial. The emotional difficulty remains authentic. Yet the subsequent transformation, both within oneself and within family relationships, demonstrates itself far more valuable than the sacrifice provision would have been. I've learned that I deserve comfort. I've learned that my requirements possess legitimacy equal to others' preferences. I've learned that living authentically, with personal boundaries clearly established and maintained, generates satisfaction that enabling others' irresponsibility never could produce. I reside comfortably now, not in lavish manner, but in genuine comfort. My residence receives maintenance I desire. My existence contains activities providing authentic pleasure. My family maintains genuine respect and affection. These elements, combined, generate the peace that previously eluded me through decades of sacrifice without acknowledgement. The cassava bread that represented rejection has become merely memory now. Yet that memory carries no longer the weight of shame or hurt. It carries the understanding that sometimes rejection becomes the greatest gift. The rejection that provokes the clarity necessary for genuine transformation and reclamation of self. It's genuinely never too late to reclaim your dignity. It's genuinely never too late to establish your boundaries. It's genuinely never too late to insist upon respectful treatment. It's genuinely never too late to choose yourself with full consciousness that such selection constitutes not betrayal but authentic love. Love for yourself and ultimately love for those who must learn through your example that capability and autonomy constitute far superior inheritances to unlimited provision. To anyone who feels like invisible presence within their own family structure, who feels like financial resource animated by heartbeat, adopt this knowledge. You possess authority regarding your resources. You possess authority regarding your existence. You possess authority regarding your future. Exercise that authority with resolve. Your dignity depends upon it. Your peace depends upon it. Ultimately, your family's authentic development depends upon it as well. The conclusion of this narrative isn't conclusion of journey. It represents new commencement. A commencement wherein I function as primary character within my own existence rather than supporting character within others' narratives. That distinction, primary rather than supporting role, generates satisfaction and peace that previously seemed impossible. I possess this peace now. It burns within my domestic environment, warming my existence, illuminating my path forward. For the initial temporal period through extended duration, I position myself optimally placed to sustain others' warmth. Currently, I position myself where solar radiation illuminates me directly, and I've discovered that I deserve that position. I merit that warmth. I'm deserving of comfort and peace and respect. That comprehension alone transforms everything.